Okay, we're trying it. Um, really just wanting to check this out for now and see whether it works out. Um, very likely, I'll be very likely I'll be messing with this some more in the future. Um, just want to say a couple things. The commandments have been on my mind. You know, we all mess up. Nobody keeps them perfect, but I think the world's a whole lot better place if we all did our best to keep them. And one I want to focus on is the honor thy father and mother one. Um, right now, there's a lot of kids, even adults older than me, that don't think they need to do that because their parents weren't worthy or something. Well, the commandment doesn't say honor them if they're worthy, and it's more. It's more than just being nice and respectful. It's being in their life. It's communicating. Uh, hopefully, you're within visiting range. You know, you don't live across the country, hopefully, or overseas or something. But it's about helping them out as they get older. Role reversal. I think you probably understand what I'm talking about. Now, my mom, she'd get old, but she might complain, but you'd never hear her much asking for help. And when I was that age and she was nearing the end of her life, you know, I had other things on the brain, like girls, for example. And so I did not notice the signs. And one night I was getting ready to go into work because I worked night shift. She had just come back from something she loved to do. So her last night before she collapsed and wound up in intensive care, at least she did something she loved doing. And that was going to, I think it's called the Eagles Club, or it was then. I think it was like a Tuesday night, and it was grocery bingo, where you know you bring a grocery item to put into the prize pile, and they play bingo for grocery items. Big whoop, right? But it was something for fun. I mean, we did that. We did bingo just for fun as a family, and it kind of caught on at some birthday parties. Even you know, they'd have some little cheapo prizes, and they would hand out to people that won, and you know that kind of fun thing. But anyway, the last time I saw her at home was that I was getting ready to dash off to work. I'd been talking to my dad, and I went to work. Then I don't know, a few hours later, I get a call, and my mom's in the hospital in the emergency room. Um, she had had problems that she didn't talk about or hardly talk about. Nobody caught it that something was wrong. And so a few days later, you know, she never got out of intensive care. We'd lost her. You know, with my dad, that brought him and me closer together, actually, because there we were. I was still living at the house at the time. Had never had a reason to move out. I wasn't married or even engaged yet, so I had no reason to leave him. And I'd been able to do things for a while for him, like mowing the grass and things of that nature, helping him out with groceries, you know. Um, with my dad, as he went downhill, and he did beat the statistic. There's a school of thought that an elderly man usually dies within the first year after his wife does. But he beat the statistic. He made it almost 2 years. But, you know, he got his health going downhill, and I was feeling more and more burdened just taking care of him, but I was doing the right thing, you know. And that's kind of part of what the commandment's about. I mean, it's not about throw them in a nursing home and forget them and then be sure to send flowers to the funeral. Again, maybe you're living halfway across the country or on the other side of the world. It's about being there for them. As they age, you may have to do And it may be disgusting, but you may have to do some of the things they used to have to do for you, like feeding, dressing, washing, making sure their meds are taken at the right amount and the right time and all. It wasn't easy. Even with a visiting nurse, there were issues that happened. But that is what that commandment, and I'm going to show you where it's at. Okay. A Bible I got from my mother in law years ago. She thought I needed one so I could repent, and I won't go into detail on that, but I'm very glad she passed this along to me. I mean, you don't find these leather bound zipper type Bibles very much anymore. If you do, it's probably at a rummage sale. I mean, if you went into a Christian bookstore, you probably would not find one. You certainly don't find one that I've ever seen anyway at Walmart. You might be able to find a Bible there, but you can't find this kind. It's pretty neat, and it is King James Version. Old English, that's the only thing that trips you up because it's Old English, and the translators did not always translate things like we in modern times would have preferred they did. But anyway, Exodus chapter 20. Now remember that Exodus is where Moses, after all those plagues, Pharaoh finally gives up and allows the Jews to leave. Moses is leading them out, and they're at the mountain where they got the law and the commandments. Well, Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Plain and simple. Then he goes on with some other things. By the way, this is where it starts. Half the commandments are how to treat God right. Half the commandments are treating other people right. So it begins with honor thy father and mother. Families were an institution created by God before there was ever a state or government to regulate it. Plain and simple there, isn't it? Thou shalt not kill. That's another one. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. All your typical thou shalt nots. That's treating people right. Jesus made short work of it for us. He said, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy mind, all thy strength, something like that. I may be tripping over some of the words. And then the other part, he really simplified it. He said, love thy neighbor as thyself. Now, when he was teaching this, one of the religious people spoke up, and sounds like a lawyer to me. A lawyer talking to somebody, or maybe he's actually on a witness stand, and he says, define neighbor. Or he says, who is my neighbor? And Jesus told him and them what was there at the time, the story of the Good Samaritan. Samaritans and Jews were practically enemies, although they were two sides of the same coin, Um, so they did not have a lot to do with each other. They weren't really much on friendly terms. But, this Jewish guy, he goes out, he's on the road traveling, and, they had to walk or ride a donkey or something of that sort back then. There was no cars, no real highways. I mean, the roads were trails. Probably not a lot of them were ever paved until the Romans did it. Okay, so he's telling them about this. This man fell among thieves. Uh, they robbed him, beat him, left him for dead. He's laying alongside the road, and a Pharisee and a scribe and whatever other religious guys walked right on by when they seen him. But a Samaritan, he comes, gives the guy first aid. I mean, there was no 911 in those days. He gives the guy first aid and takes him to a nearby home or house somewhere, and he says, take care of this guy, help him get back to health. Here's some money. And when I come back by this way, if you've spent more than this, let me know and I can pay you. So the Good Samaritan, did the love thy neighbor thing. He went out of his way to help somebody. It cost him his time. If he had an appointment, well, he was late. He was going to miss it. It cost him some of his money. Um, but he did above and beyond. Most of us would call 911 and say, see ya, unless, of course, we had our, first aid card or something, and then we'd be obligated at least to stay until the rescue comes or whatever. Um, but he didn't do that. He stuck with it. And that, I think, is what I'm talking about. Your neighbor is whoever God has in your life at that particular time. Your neighbor could be the person across the back fence. They could be your neighbor for 50 years. Or perhaps a crowded airport terminal, you pass along a word of encouragement to a stranger. Your stranger might be in your life for 5 minutes. Love thy neighbor. You know. And I think that's it. If everybody on the planet started doing this, we'd have a whole lot better world going on. And hopefully some others will take care of it. Everybody start, you've got your part to do. Let's everybody do their part. That's all I can really say about it. I'm going to do a share before I even see how this turned out. Again, I'm not used to this at all. Okay, just share this to Facebook and see what happens with it. See what happens doing a test. I think I'll leave it at that. And here's hoping it worked out. Okay. Escape there. Now end stream. Good night, everybody.